thoughts through anime. Show me how they like to play. Took me to the movie theater. This is what they had to say.
I can't remember if I cried or if I laughed. I just remember I want my money back. I can't remember if it sucked or if I had a blast. All I know is at the end of the show, when the credits rolled, it said Filmtopiacast 3000.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Filmtopiacast 3000. I'm your host, Greg McIver, and with me is...
Nikki Boom Boom.
Nikki Boom Boom. Well, sorry for that little hiatus there, but you know how it is. Holiday work, ravaging viruses invading our bodies, and just...
Greg's got a frog in his throat.
I have a frog in my throat, sorry. But we're back, and we're very happy to be back, and we're going to talk about some movies now.
Some movies from last year, as it happens. They're from last year now.
In fact, they are from last year. It's 2013. It's a brand new year, and so we're going to look back a little bit and talk about some movies that we've seen. What would you like to talk about first?
Well, we have two big ones to discuss, and they're both about slavery.
Yes.
Oh, let me just put this out here. I don't believe either of us saw The Hobbit last month.
Oh, yeah. We're bad film nerds.
We're kind of bad film nerds, but I blame the Hobbit team for this.
Yeah.
They underwhelmed us. They did.
This is very true. There's nothing really about the movie that was just like, I gotta go out and see that.
I mean, I'm gonna see it.
Oh,
don't get me wrong.
Eventually, it will be viewed, but you know.
And if any Tolkien fans are frothing at the mouth because I've shown slight disrespect, after they broke it into 3 movies, I became less excited. I'm still gonna see it, of course.
Yeah, I'll get around to seeing it at some point too, but I just, I don't know. I haven't been very excited about it. I don't know what it is.
Needless to say, Tarantino trumped Tolkien in my book. So let's talk about Django Unchained.
Django Unchained. Oh my God, that movie was fantastic.
It was very, very good.
I remember talking to you a while back, and you know, I was asking, I was like, well, what do you think one of your favorite movies of the year is going to be? And you're like, it's going to be Django. I was like, and I thought you were silly at first. I was like, there's no way Django could be one of the best movies of the year. And it is. It's one of the best movies of the year. This movie is just pure entertainment with some subtle stuff snuck in there, too. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you know, and we've talked a bit about this in the last week or so. I initially walked out of the theater kind of feeling like... there wasn't not much to think about there.
Right. Other than the obvious, like, slavery bad, you know.
Right. And being like, having that completely shoved into your face. Well, it wasn't, though. It was part of the background, but it was an obvious part of the background. It was inescapable. And I guess that was kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there is just, like, a lot of mindless, fun Western action in the movie as well. And I guess I was dwelling on that as I left the theater. I don't think it's Tarantino's best work, but it was very good. And after we talked about it some more, I don't want to. Maybe we'll do a spoiler bit in a few minutes here, but like there are some meaty things there to chew over.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think this is spoilerish per se, but you've got the Django's sidekick and mentor, Dr. King Schultz, played by Christoph Waltz, who I believe walks off with this movie.
He was fantastic.
He's absolutely wonderful in this role, and he's basically Django's mentor in the movie, and he's a bounty hunter, as you know from the previews. And early on, they make a comparison between bounty hunting and the slave trade, where, you know, Christoph Waltz's character basically says, you're basically trading flesh for cash, you know? So it's interesting that they brought up the similarity there.
And it's interesting because he's a very polite and good man who happens to kill people for a living. And,
yes, absolutely.
And he could, it's dead or alive. He could take them alive, but it's...
He always chooses the dead way, and our friend Kira pointed this out last night when I was mentioning it to her. She said, well, he says in the movie because dead is easier.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, given that it's coming from such a moral character, supposedly, why he would then still go the route of murder. And isn't that, if you think about it, I mean, the issue of slavery and why people wanted to keep it going back in the day is a very big one, and there's a lot of different ins and outs and avenues. But in the end, didn't white people back in the day want slaves because it just made life easier for them?
Right. There was a very broad and good comparison between the bounty hunting and the slave trade drawn here, and showed how, like, just because that's the way it is, a good person might somehow kind of get sucked into that system, and and deals with that in a very visceral way towards the end of the movie. The kind of guilt that sets in once you open your eyes to that.
Exactly, the guilt that sets in when you get swept up in it. Because again, Dr. King Schultz is a very good man, but sometimes good people end up doing things that are not so good, and a lot of time they don't even realize they're doing it. They just think, oh, well, this is just what I do. This is part of who I am.
And he is completely within the confines of the law every time that he does these bad things.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's a couple times when it seems like he does something crazy or reckless, and then he'll go like, oh, no, everybody, I just want to show you this document in my left pocket. Can I take it out, please? Proving that he has a bounty out on somebody or so on. What else about this movie?
Well, I mean, we should mention, the performances all around. I mean, of course, Christoph Waltz, I believe, walks off with the movie, but you've got Jamie Foxx doing a very good job as the lead role of Django.
The iconic Django.
The iconic Django. You've got Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio as one of the film's main villains, as Mr. Calvin Candide.
He's very good.
Who was very good in this. It's interesting to see Mr. DiCaprio play a villain, especially a slave-owning, he's just an awful, awful human being, and it's very interesting.
But he's very engaging and entertaining, awful human being.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know.
Speaking of which, Sam Jackson in a role that I would not have seen Sam Jackson in.
Samuel Jackson is phenomenal in this movie.
As Stephen, the house slave.
Stephen, the house slave.
Who really is the true antagonist of the movie.
When you come to think about it, he absolutely is. I mean, definitely Calvin Candy is a force to be reckoned with, but a lot of what gets thrown into motion is because of what Stephen does. So, just... an incredible role, and I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. I was actually going to ask you about this, Nick. I was watching Red Letter Media's latest release, Half in the Bag, and they were talking about Django. They both really loved it. But those two gentlemen from Half in the Bag have gone on record as saying they do not like Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor, which I don't entirely agree with. I'm hot and cold. I think there's some stuff he's really good in, and I think there's some stuff that, whatever.
Yeah.
But they said in this, they both really liked him.
Okay.
But they said it still looked like young Leo playing dress up, and it was cool that he was in a Tarantino movie, but at the same time, it still looked like, it was just, oh, look, Leo's going to put on a little beard and mustache and some Southern clothes, and he's going to pretend. I kind of bought it for the most part.
I feel like they're just biased on him or something, but I totally bought him in the role. I mean, he'll always have a young look, but I mean,
yes.
He's not a kid anymore either. He can definitely be playing like a landowning, young, enterprising plantation owner,
Absolutely. I thought he was fine in the role too.
Yeah.
Just very bad man deal.
Now Tarantino is wrangling a bit more star power these days, but it is nice to see that he is still pulling people out of obscurity and place them into roles you'd never think to put them in.
Like Don Johnson.
Don Johnson is Big Daddy.
Don Johnson is Big Daddy.
Who's also a horrible man and a plantation owner.
He is a horrible man and a plantation owner, and this is see elements right here.
Oh, and Jonah Hill out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, and Jonah Hill out of nowhere. He's only
in a real cameo, just for a second.
Just a brief cameo, just has only a couple lines, but he's there. Well, obviously the film Django is getting a lot of buzz, aside from the fact that it's just really damn good. But Spike Lee has gone on record as saying he will not see this movie,
right?
Because why would you make light of slavery? And slavery is not something to be made light of, and it's not a spaghetti western, and all that. And on the scene with Don Johnson towards the beginning, not the Ku Klux Klan scene, although that's definitely the funniest scene in the movie. If you've seen Django, you know what I'm talking about.
They goof on the Klan pretty good.
They goof on the Klan very well. And that right there is kind of my overall point. This movie actually is more similar to Blazing Saddles than it is any other previous Django film or spaghetti western, because it's kind of deconstructing racism. It's punching it in the stomach and deflating it by showing that the people that are propagating it are idiots and they're stupid, and the horrors of slavery are not funny at all. But the idea that you would put on hoods and you would go capture somebody, of another race is absolutely idiotic,
Well, and I don't, I understand why Spike Lee would react that way, because it's always going to be a prickly pear.
Yes.
Same as the Holocaust. These are things you got to be careful with. But that doesn't mean that every time you engage with this subject, it needs to be done with this somber, frowning attitude. Not every movie that takes place,
right?
Because that's the thing. It's a Western action movie that happens to be in a time where there's slavery, and in which slavery does factor in, but it's basically part of the backdrop,
Mm-hmm. It's part of the culture.
It's part of the culture of that time, and I don't know. I don't think you are necessarily obligated to go into like a cry fest every time that there happens to be a tough subject at hand. It's like
right.
This did end up kind of being a tearjerker in the end, but I guess what I'm saying is an example of this would be Life is Beautiful, where
yes,
it was about the Holocaust, but it was a comedy. There were some very beautiful, very tear-jerking moments in it, but it was a comedy.
It was primarily a comedy. No, absolutely. I believe that if done well, and I believe Quentin Tarantino did it very well here, because again, he wasn't poking fun at slavery as far as we're gonna take the institution of slavery and we're gonna make it funny,
No, it's not a slave comedy.
No, all instances.
Or slave action movie.
No.
Really.
All instances of slavery were very horrific, or just not cool to look at. Again, the scene towards the beginning with Big Daddy comes the closest, just because of a few lines early on. Most notably, now you treat Django, you treat him good now. It's like,
so I should treat him like a white man? No.
That's not
what I said.
And that got probably the second biggest laugh in the audience when I saw that. But my suggestion to Mr. Spike Lee in regards to that, we'd solve this whole problem really easily. Go see the movie. Just see the movie, Spike. Come on. Don't be closed-minded. You're a very good filmmaker. So by nature, I don't believe you to be very closed-minded, because you've made some great films out there, which shows you have imagination and creativity. Just go see this movie, for God's sakes.
I feel like there might be some reaction that Quentin Tarantino would not have from maybe the black community, that Tarantino would not have the right to make this film, and that he's posing as a black man by doing so. Which he kind of has gotten flack for and been accused of in the past, with Jackie Brown.
Right.
And with his liberal use of the N-word.
Yeah.
Although Louis C.K. would chide me for saying the phrase the N-word.
Oh yeah, now
I'm making you do it.
Making you mean do it now? You're making all of them do it now. You just made our whole audience say that word in their head, and I'm doing it now by just calling it that word.
But let's not say it.
Indeed, no.
But anyway, and I applaud him for not even addressing this and just keeping doing what he does.
Yeah.
These are the songs that he sings, and you can like them or not, but I mean, that's what he identifies with, and like if you're not happy with that, I'm sorry, but like he makes some damn good movies, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of that only black people could make movies about slaves is a little, I don't know, it's a little insulting because not every.
Once again, it's a prickly pear.
It's a very prickly pear. I mean, I don't know. That's like a whole huge can of worms right there.
Right.
We're gonna stop talking about film in a second here. We're gonna start talking about cultural issues and stuff like that. And those things are not important. Okay, you should never talk about cultural issues or think about things like that. Movies. It's just all about the movies.
Keep yourself on the narcotic of the masses, which is, it used to be religion, now it's movies. So let's focus on our fix here. Some weaknesses in the film, to my mind, is, as we've discussed before, Broomhilda, the wife character, who's presented as like a very interesting sort of anomaly in that time, in that she's a very willful slave who tries to escape all the time, and that she was raised. Her first owners were German, so she speaks German, which is like unheard of. And for all of that, we don't really get much characterization at all on her. She doesn't really have much to do or say. She's the MacGuffin.
Yeah, she's the MacGuffin. She is the means to the end. That's the goal that he's racing towards. She's the reason why we have this movie, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely noticeable. It would have been nice if they had done something with her. In the end, I don't think it cripples the film by any stretch.
No, I'm not saying that it does. I'm just saying.
But it's definitely there, and it would have been nice if she had more than maybe 5 things to say.
Right.
And did more than just faint.
And other than that, so I saw the original Django a few months ago in preparation for this. I think over the summer actually. Maybe.
Right.
Because there's just a little backstory if you don't know. There's a whole bunch of Django movies out there. It's because the guy who made Django, his name I don't know, him and Sergio Leone were pals. They're both Italians.
Right.
And they both kind of got the idea together of like, we have so much landscape in this country that looks like desert. Why can't we make Western movies? Because I think Germans had made a Western in their country, and they were like, Germans did it. We can do this.
Nice.
And so Leone beat him to the punch and put out For a Fistful of Dollars.
Well, no one's ever heard of that.
Oh, no. Went down obscurity.
Django, however, everyone's heard of.
But, and the thing is that, like, Django's kind of the same character as the Man with No Name, except that he has a name.
Right.
And there's a couple other differences, like he drags a coffin behind him everywhere he goes, which I think is what inspired, like, Desperado, for example.
The guitar case full of guns.
Right, because Django's coffin is full of weaponry. And also there's an anime called Trigun, which is a western in which a guy, he carries around a big cross, and it ends up being full of weapons as well.
Hey.
So anyway, it's a western that inspired a lot of other stuff. But because of improper licensing or copyright, or maybe just because they didn't copyright the name Django, I'm not sure. A bunch of other movies came out after the original Django that featured a character named Django that were not made by the same filmmaking team at all.
I wonder if they were happy about that.
I don't think that they were. I think that they eventually did put out a sequel or two, wherein Django, the actual Django, returned, played by an actor named Franco Neri, who was in this movie.
Made a cameo.
He made a cameo in Django Unchained.
Tarantino's pretty good about, not only just paying homage with the film, but if he can get, somebody that was actually in the original, you got to give him a little credit,
Sure. And I guess my question, though, is the thing I'm left with is, why is this a Django movie? Because
let me tell you why I called this a Django film. I'm going to tell you what like a virgin is. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. That's a really good question because you said the Django in the original movies, you know, he's sort of a man with no name type character that carries around a coffin full of guns.
Right.
And he's not a black slave.
Well, and all that's the race thing is secondary. It's more just that he's a cowboy that rides into town with a scheme, pulls his scheme off and leaves, and he's very laconic. He doesn't speak much. He just goes in and gets done what he needs to. It's very much like Man with No Name in Fistful of Dollars. He's like Yojimbo because that's what it's based on. Comes into town,
Right.
pits people against each other, and then kind of bamboozles them. And you do get the sense of that character from Jamie Foxx's character in Django, from this Django.
Right.
But it's almost like Django Begins because he's not. He has to get like rescued and trained by Dr. King, who's very like heavy-handed symbolism in that naming. Because they don't call him Dr. Schultz in the movie, do they? They call him Dr. King.
Yeah.
Who leads the black man out of bondage.
But still, though, it's only in name is it really any kind of comparison because Dr. King, our Dr. King, preached nonviolence, and this Dr. King kills at the drop of a hat.
Well, that's true. That's very true.
It's very interesting, but yes, obviously in name only, there is a bit of a tribute there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like you said, a lot of movies have been called Django, so it might have been more of a continuation of that little awful tradition of just stealing the name. I mean, even Tarantino himself was in a Japanese film called
Sukiyaki Western Django. Yeah.
Exactly, which you said there's not even a character named Django in that movie, right? They just somehow stuck that in the title?
I think they called Tarantino's character Paringo.
What?
They call him Paringo.
Paringo? Why isn't it then Sukiyaki Western Paringo?
Because it's Mike, and Mike's a friggin' nut.
Oh, Mike.
We should have a whole episode about Takashi Miike movies one time.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and he's batshit out of his mind.
We'll just briefly say that, yes, he is a Japanese filmmaker who he makes like a movie a year, if not more than that.
No, well, I don't know about it anymore. It used to be the pace at which he'd make a movie. Sometimes it'd be like he'd fire out like 6 in a year because and they'd be all different. They'd be so different from one another.
Some would look like, oh, you just shot this on a camcorder and it's a piece of crap, and others look like a beautifully shot epic, you know. And I'm like, oh my god, this man actually has skill and talent.
And he does everything from like Yakuza movies to like horrible psychological horror to kids movies. He's all over the map.
Yeah. There's I don't think there is a genre that he hasn't tackled yet. So
the West, I think, mostly knows him for a film called Audition. That seems to be his most successful in the Western market.
Yeah, Audition is a really good movie.
It is a good movie,
if you haven't seen it. Although I challenge all of our listeners to go out and find. Probably what Nick considers the most horrific movie he's ever seen.
The most messed up movie I've ever seen is called Ichi the Killer. Yeah. And it was made by Takashi Miike. And when I say messed up, I'm not talking about like the level of blood or the level of actual physical horror in the movie. Because there are other movies that have a one-up on that, you know, and I've seen them, but they haven't left such an indelible like psychological scar as as Ichi the Killer, which just...
There are things in that movie that you just have to kind of witness firsthand. It's a complete, there's no humanity in the film.
No, every single character is morally bankrupt, and there's all this like blurring of the lines between like sex and violence.
Yeah, I remember reading in a film book a few years ago that my friend Rick owned. And they were talking about the movie Double Indemnity. And whatever schmuck wrote this book decided to sound really smart, and he wrote the passage, "In Double Indemnity, there's not one single kind moment or, single good person in the movie, ha ha ha," and I wanted to throw the book across the room because if you've ever seen Double Indemnity, there are several kind moments in the movie, and it's really stupid for that person to have said that. Ichi the Killer... This is a movie. Kind moment in the movie. This is a movie devoid of any kindness whatsoever. Even when it starts to hint at maybe a character might be okay, just makes a
They do. They tease you with that once or twice.
Yes, and
it's like, oh, here's our good guy. Oh,
yeah.
No.
Oh no. This person is just as bad. Yeah. No. So definitely seek out Ichi the Killer. In fact, I think, Nick, I'd love to have an episode or dedicate at least half an episode talking about some Asian movies that we really like.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there that's really good that we could talk about.
If you want brain scars, check out Ichi the Killer. It's really great.
Ichi the Killer.
I still can't say if I like it or not. It's just like unforgettable. That's the best thing I can say about it.
Yeah, you showed it to me once, and I can't really say that either. It was interesting.
It's just unforgettable. That's it.
Exactly. So go out, lads, and be well when watching it.
Anything else we got to say about Django here? I guess I will say I've been noticing. I guess he's doing this like as a thematic trilogy.
Yeah,
sort of. Where because Django reminded me a lot of Inglourious Bastards in that. In other Tarantino movies, you have a lot of moral ambiguity, and you do get that here, as we've talked about with the Dr. King character.
It's a little harder to find, though, I think.
It's a little harder to find because the main subject of the movie seems to be like F slavers and kill them all.
Yes.
Whereas in Inglourious Bastards, it was F Nazis and kill them all.
Yeah, basically.
Do not suffer a Nazi to live. Do not suffer a slaver to live. And it was just a little bit disappointing just because it's such an easy target.
Yeah, but still.
But it's fun.
It's very fun, and Tarantino did it well. Yeah, I would agree with you that Bastards and Django have been just almost like revenge flicks against these institutions that were awful.
Yes, like righteous anger flicks, like Jewish righteous anger, and then followed by black righteous anger.
Right. These are Tarantino's revenge flicks, cultural revenge flicks. A lot of other critics have been saying his revisionist history films. I'm like, no, cultural revenge films is what you need to call these.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything else to say about Django. Yes, there are definitely some interesting things going on with it once you kind of get past, like, just the overall entertainment of it, because it's such an entertaining movie. Again, Quentin is back with his, dialogue. It's the best he's been in a few years, in my opinion. Great cast of characters, just overall a lot of great things going on, and definitely one of the best movies I've seen in 2012, easily. And unless there was something else you wanted to mention about Django, I figured we could throw some things out there really quickly that maybe we might have also seen in 2012 that we haven't talked about yet.
Well, I was going to segue actually into, we both did see also another movie in which slavery was a big topic, which was Lincoln.
Oh, did they talk about slavery in that?
A little.
Oh.
You might have missed it, but they did. It was mentioned.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, I remember now, yeah. It was, I thought it was
that
some
whole
sort
13th Amendment thing,
I thought
Emancipation Proclamation.
I thought that was some sort of sugar tax. I guess. Was that? Am I in the wrong decade?
I really like the idea that the Civil War was fought over sugar tax.
Whatever. The Revolutionary War was fought over
sweet tea versus unsweetened tea.
Oh yes, indeed. No, yes, absolutely. We both saw Lincoln, and I think Lincoln is a fine film. I think it's a very, very good film.
Very fine. Very, very fine film. Very uplifting, heartwarming piece of Americana.
Yes.
Like nearly like American myth. Like, because Lincoln has been like exalted to like this I think like the most beloved American president probably.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting because the movie doesn't really overtly try and take anything away from that image, but it sort of subtly does in a way, but it still kind of keeps the image of, Lincoln was a very warm and wise man, with a very high-pitched voice, actually.
Which is supposed to be, that's historically
very
accurate.
historically accurate.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, like, he doesn't walk through the movie talking like this, but it's
all this slave business.
What's all this about not wearing the purity rings? Jesus Christ. One of the best moments in South Park of all time. Anywho, very soft-spoken man, very warm, very wise and such, But what the movie does subtly, in order to sort of give you a different perspective on him, it doesn't take any of those things away from him. But in the way in which he has to go about getting the 13th Amendment passed, he does engage in some activities which some could be considered, not right or morally.
With James Spader's character going around persuading people.
Basically, yeah, Lincoln, through his Secretary of State, Seward, played by the great David Strathairn,
who was fantastic in that role.
He's a fantastic actor. He's excellent in this as well. Basically, they hire these 3 guys to go around, and basically those that have not cast their vote yet, or those that could be swung, they are offered like cushy jobs outside, obviously, being a politician, in order to persuade them to vote Lincoln's way.
So they bribe people with the promise of employment, basically.
Yes, they bribe people. And you would think, when dealing with Abraham Lincoln, I'm sure he never did anything like that, bribery, but no, he really wanted this amendment passed.
Well, and it's not too hard to believe he was considered a tyrant by a lot of people just because of...
Oh, yeah.
He just extended... he used the war to, violate habeas corpus and, do all these other things, emergency powers under war, that a president should not be able to do, but you
kind of needed to do it, though.
Well, sure. And you're seeing that he's taking full advantage of his position, even when he has to, kind of bend the rules a little bit in order to accomplish this, in order to make a significant change on the world. That
the idea of the movie is in the end all about the greater good.
Yeah.
I have to bribe these people. I might have to suspend this law for a period of time. People aren't going to like it now, but in the end...
He kind of extends the war for at least a week.
He does extend the war for at least a week, and he understands that, that's worse than the bribery, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he knows that more people might die, or definitely will die, but at the same time, he's thinking of the overall good the 13th Amendment will do for millions of people, and he makes that conscious choice, And I also just want to put it out there that Daniel Day-Lewis, you're a freak. You're a freak. No, he's just so good.
He was amazing, and it's almost wrong how amazing.
It is almost wrong because, this man, this, and then There Will Be Blood, and Gangs of New York. The man's a friggin' chameleon. It really is insane how good he is in this movie, but,
Well, the things he needs to do to get himself there.
Didn't he send Sally Field text messages?
He sent her in-character text messages for a year.
That's cute and all, but
why does Lincoln have a cell phone?
Why does Lincoln have a cell phone to be like, "My darling, I'm very happy I'm able to reach out to you on this device." Pause. What is this device?
If anyone listening doesn't know for some reason, Daniel Day-Lewis is famous for being so intensely method that he needs to live as that person for an extended period of time before he will do the role, and I think on set he will not break character, all of that type of thing,
You see, I myself, I respect method acting. I respect the idea of it. And it's lucky for me I don't know Daniel Day-Lewis, because I would want to smack him, because I have been around people that have tried to do the method, and all I want to do is punch him, because it's really annoying to be around. Again, I respect the idea of it, and I respect an actor trying to accomplish what they need to, but it's really frustrating when you just want to be like, so hey, after this, you want to go grab some lunch? Oh, I don't know. There's so many things weighing on my mind right now with the dark days of the Civil War. Shut up! Do you want to grab a burger or not? For God's sake!
It reminded me of Jamie Foxx used to do stand-up before his acting and music and all of that took off. And there's one that we quote all the time.
Yeah.
He was filming Any Given Sunday with LL Cool J, who he kind of famously feuded with. And LL was very method.
Was trying to be method, yeah.
And he was running somewhere. And Jamie Foxx kind of yells at him like, "Hey man, where you going?" He's like, oh, I gotta get in shape. We got a big game today.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. I'm an actor portraying Willie Beeman. That's me.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, I have the script. It's I'm Willie Beeman and you're whoever it is you think you are right now. It's like yeah, because you said he talks about doing a scene where they're having an argument, and he's like, I'm doing the scene with him, but it looks like he's getting mad. And I was like, you know, I just want to be like, I'm not really saying this to you. This isn't me, you know. So very funny stand-up special if you haven't seen it.
Yes. So the pros and cons of method acting, but it can't take away what a fine performance he did as Abraham Lincoln.
No, not at all.
Just like he just really seemed like somebody you would want to hang around and absorb.
Yeah,
every little thing they had to say.
Absolutely, very wise.
Tells stories wherever he goes. I love it when is it Brian Cox in that role who like gets up?
No, that's one of my favorite character actors, Bruce McGill, who has been in so many good movies. We're giving a shout out to Bruce McGill. He's a wonderful character actor. He's been in so many damn good movies. I know we named one of our old episodes after a very great character actor named Zelko Ivanchek.
Yeah, that's right.
Bruce McGill is on Zelko Ivanchek's level of fantastic character roles, and so yes, he is in this movie. And go ahead, he was.
Because Lincoln is just telling stories whenever like he's like quelling all the arguments with like, it'll just launch into a story.
Let me tell you about the time, you know, it's very homespun.
There's a great moment where they're just like in the war chamber and they're like waiting on big news and people are yelling at each other and Lincoln starts to do it again and Bruce McGill is like, oh no, you're gonna tell a story. I can't stand here and listen to it. Like leaves the room.
I cannot stand another story. And just storms out. Poor guy.
I think people might have been surprised at how like 90% of this movie was political maneuvering,
passing of the 13th Amendment,
and all the ins and outs of that and intricacies, and how there were people that really wanted to end slavery who were not in favor of the 13th Amendment because they felt like it was not the right time to do this.
It's and Lincoln just sort of felt like, no, it's now or never.
And then you had people like Tommy Lee Jones's character who were like, this is not enough. Like, I'm making a big compromise even just to support this, you know?
No, exactly. But, you know, at this point, you know, I think in the end he felt, well, it's better than nothing, you know? It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Tommy Lee Jones doing a very great job in this movie as well. Again, this movie is just like a watering hole for supporting roles. Sally Field was fantastic. Let's see, James Spader, as we mentioned earlier, was friggin' hysterical and wonderful to watch as a character named Bilbo. So we did see a movie with a character named Mr. Bilbo. It just wasn't the right movie with the character of Mr. Bilbo in it.
Well, that is up for debate.
This is very, very true. This is very, very true. But a fantastic supporting cast all around, and I think it was a very good movie. It was a very interesting movie that was more overtly, or it was more obvious about its moral quandaries than Django was. Django is a bit more subtle, and again, as you had mentioned before, Django had a lot of frosting and sugar sprinkled on top, which is as in the entertainment aspects.
No big gunfights in Lincoln.
Right. No, not that I saw at the very least.
No.
So yeah, Lincoln, definitely recommend it.
Yeah, no, it was great. There were two things that I had little bones to pick with it. I felt like the opening, I got a little bit of impression that like this was gonna be cheesy from just the first couple minutes of the movie.
Oh, they're all taking turns reciting the Gettysburg Address. Yeah. Okay.
I got a little worried, and then it got good, and then it was like, okay, never mind.
Spielberg, I love you, Spielberg. If you're never gonna listen to this.
Well, no.
Spielberg, I love Spielberg, but he can get a little schmaltzy.
He gets a little. I mean, he made a horsey movie last year.
He did make a horsey movie last year. He also made a movie in which Tom Hanks lives in an airport called The Terminal.
He did make that one, yeah.
Which is a fun little movie, but there is so much schmaltz in that movie. I mean, that's Spielberg's little love letter to Frank Capra.
Right.
But still, I don't care. The only saving grace for that movie, The Terminal, is the fact that it ends in a really good way, because it totally flips what you're thinking is going to happen on its head, and I thought it was actually really fantastic. But yes, Mr. Spielberg, because I'm saying Schmaltz, so he's Spielberg. Mr. Spielberg, you're amazing, wonderful, brilliant, but yeah, a little schmaltzy at times.
And then it's not really a problem. I wonder why they did this, why they went this way. And I've heard other people say this too. They spoiler alert, Lincoln gets shot in the head at the end.
No!
But they don't show it at all.
Oh.
And I'm not saying that I wanted blood spray, but
well, they do a bait and switch almost.
Yeah, they do a bait and switch. They do, yeah, because they don't even show you the scene of him going to the theater or anything, you know?
Well, you see him leaving.
Yeah.
And he says his last words to his cabinet, and he walks out. And then they cut to a theater where there's a show going on, and ba-ba-ba. Now, I kind of knew what was coming at this point because if you know your history, the show that Lincoln and his wife were watching was an American show about Americans, and the show that Lincoln's younger boy is watching this has got Arabian warriors and stuff like that. So as soon as I saw what was going on stage, I'm like, this is not the theater Lincoln's in. Either that or they really got their facts mixed up about the show. That was it had American in the title, for God's sakes. I'm just blanking on the name, but
I don't remember.
It didn't have Arabian warriors. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, basically it cuts to a theater. Just pretend you don't know history or you didn't listen to me for the last 15 seconds. He's like, well, I'm going to the theater. He goes to the theater, and it cuts to a theater, and you see his little boy in the box, watching the show. And you're expecting, any moment the camera's going to pan over, and you're going to see Lincoln there, and he's going to have his head blown off. And all of a sudden, a man just steps out on stage in the middle of the show and says, "The president has been shot at Ford's Theater," which I guess is a theater like a few streets down or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting that they decided to do it that way. Even the folks at Red Letter Media mentioned that was the one thing that they didn't like in Lincoln was just the president has been shot in the theater next door.
Right.
It
seemed kind of unnecessary.
Why would you do that? I think it would have emotional impact if you saw him get killed, or even don't, include that, one or the other, but don't sort of half-ass it, because it seemed a little half-assed.
Yeah. Yeah.
A moment of silence for Lincoln. All right, moment of silence over.
So, Lincoln, really good. Tony Kushner did an excellent job on
Yes!
the screenplay.
Yes, Mr. Angels in America rocked it out of the house.
There were, a couple times where I wanted to write down specific things that Lincoln said just because they seemed like brilliant things to drop in conversation.
Totally.
I wonder if they're actual Lincoln quotes or if Tony Kushner wrote them.
Well, a lot of stuff, because I used to be quite the Lincoln fan back when I was in school and studying history. He was one of my favorite historical characters.
Sure.
I can definitely tell you the story in the movie that he talks about the British using the restroom and the picture of George Washington. That is totally a real story that he told people. Yeah. There are a lot of little things in the movie that I kind of was just like, okay. It's a lot. So I think Mr. Kushner
did his homework.
Oh yeah, he did his homework.
I like when he's like, perhaps you can come in and explain to us why this is thus and thus is this, or so. It was something like that.
Oh God! Again, it was great with Lincoln because he's very warm and kind and homespun, but there was at times a little tinge of sarcasm there, and just you could definitely see him getting a little frustrated at times at things, because he's still a human being, he wasn't a god or anything like that. So just again, great writing from Mr. Kushner and a great performance by Mr. Day-Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're running out of time. I'm seeing here. Was there anything else you wanted to throw out there as far as what you saw in 2012 quickly that you would say yay or nay to?
Nothing I've seen recently.
Okay.
What about you?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It is my show after all. No, I'm kidding. Yes, there are just a few that I'm going to throw out there. I won't go into too much detail as far as yay or nay. Let's see. This is 40, the new Judd Apatow movie with Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann. Yes, I saw it. And I don't know. I'm going to give it a very tentative yay. There were some funny parts to it, but overall it didn't feel very consistent, and it felt like more like a string of skits, kind of like tied
really?
together than anything else. There didn't seem to be any real drive to the movie. So a very tentative yay on that, and then Hitchcock.
Right.
No, do not go see Hitchcock. That movie was awful for so many reasons.
It's disappointing because, I mean, you're a big Hitchcock fan.
I love Hitchcock. He's one of my favorite film directors of all time. It's aside from the fact that the movie just gets so many things wrong historically, it's not my biggest beef. It was also a little insulting and frustrating because I think they thought they were making a Hitchcock film about Hitchcock, like they were making a Hitchcockian type film, and they completely lost sight of what makes Hitchcock a great film, because this film that's been released with Anthony Hopkins is a very obvious, no pun intended, but bloated film where everything is telegraphed,
Right.
Everything's corny, and it's just so in your face. And what the filmmakers seem to have forgotten, that Hitchcock was a bit more subtle. His talent lay within setting up something in a scene in a film that you let the audience in on what is happening, but the main character doesn't. That's why you have the audience being like, no, behind you, he's walking down the hall, you've got to get out of there. You know, the main character doesn't know he's walking down the hall, but you do. But Hitchcock was subtle about things like that. You know, he didn't like zoom into the friggin' feet on the ground, you know, in like raise the volume of the footsteps like, he's coming down the hall. Which is what every scene in Hitchcock felt like, is just somebody screaming in your face, get it? Anthony Perkins had mother issues!
Yeah.
The character he plays has mother issues! Ha! Ha!
You said there was a lot of that where it was like actors, the actors were just being the characters.
Right, that's the whole reason they were casting, or, oh, look, the writer of the screenplay is a little crazy.
Ooh.
The guy that wrote Psycho is a little psycho. Ah! I just wanted to slap this movie in the face. So, no, don't go see Hitchcock. It was friggin' awful. I just made my sore throat even worse by doing all of that. So
well, you got very worked up over.
I did.
I didn't like that movie.
Yeah, I was really, really, really disappointed in that movie. So we're gonna take our leave now. Tune in next time where we will talk. I think we'll probably talk about movies again.
I don't want to talk about movies. I want to talk about the fiscal cliff. Is that still a thing?
No, that was averted. Thank you so much for joining in. Did you want to throw something else in there?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You don't want to talk about the fiscal cliff? Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Greg McKay. And with me is... And we'll see you next time.
This has been a production of the Nerdtopiacast Internet Network. Be sure to check out more podcasts, videocasts, and articles at nerdtopiacast.com.